Grief is a quiet thing at first. It sits in the corners of empty rooms. It hums in the spaces between heartbeats. But sometimes it starts humming back. Mara only wanted her son again. Just one more lullaby. One more chance to hold him. And when the reborn doll arrived, she swore she heard him whisper to her in the dark. At first, her husband thought it was just a mother's broken heart, until the night the baby monitor crackled to life. And something answered from the crib. This isn't a ghost story. This is a warning, because what happens when love refuses to bury the dead? When a cradle becomes a coffin, and something wakes up inside? This is the empty crib. The first time I saw the doll, I thought it was a cruel joke. Mara had ordered it online. A reborn, they called it. A lifelike baby doll crafted with weighted limbs and hand-painted veins, designed to soothe grieving mothers. She'd been browsing those forums for weeks, ever since the funeral, her laptop glowing in the dark long after I'd gone to bed. I'd pretended not to notice. When the package arrived, she cradled it like it was made of spun glass, whispering to it in that high, lilting voice she used to reserve for our son. "Shh, my love, Mama's here." I stood in the doorway of the nursery, arms crossed, watching her rock back and forth in the old wooden chair we'd bought for him. The real one. The one who only lived for 27 days. The one we buried in a casket so small it could have been a shoebox. I didn't cry at the funeral. Mara did enough for both of us. Her screams were animal, raw, like her soul was being torn out through her throat. Afterward, she refused to look at the urn, just left it on the mantel, turned her back on it like it was a stranger. I just stood there, hollow, watching them lower that tiny box into the ground. Now she was singing to a doll. It was unnervingly real. The way its eyelids fluttered when she tilted it, the slight part of its lips, the soft peach fuzz hair on its scalp. It even smelled like a baby, powder and something faintly milky. Too much like him. I had to look away. "You should hold him," Mara murmured, not looking up. I didn't move. She finally lifted her gaze, and the look in her eyes, desperate, feverish, made my stomach twist. "Ethan, hold your son." I forced myself to step forward. The doll was heavier than I expected, its limbs pliant, the skin cool but not lifeless. I adjusted it in my arms, and for one terrible second, I swore its fingers curled around my thumb. I froze. The weight of it, the way it settled against my chest, too familiar. My pulse hammered in my throat. Had I imagined it? I nearly dropped it. Mara laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in months. "He likes you." I swallowed hard and laid it back in the crib, making sure its face was turned toward the window, away from me. That night I woke to static. The baby monitor on my nightstand hissed, a low rhythmic crackle. Mara slept soundly beside me, her breathing deep and even. I lay there for a full minute listening, telling myself it was just interference. The monitor had glitched before, then a whimper. Soft, wet, unmistakably infantile. My blood turned to ice. Another pause. Silence. Then another whimper, this time trailing into a gurgle like a mouth filling with liquid. I was out of bed before I could think, stumbling down the hall to the nursery. The door was slightly ajar, moonlight spilling across the floor. The crib sat in the center of the room, the doll motionless inside. Nothing moved. I exhaled, running a hand over my face. Stress, hallucinations, grief playing tricks. Then I noticed the smell, sweet, cloying, like rotting milk, and the sound, a faint, wet creak, like stiff joints bending. The doll's head, it had been facing the window when I left. Now it was looking straight at me. I told myself I imagined it. The turned head, the whisper on the monitor, the smell. Grief does strange things to the mind, shrinks reality down to a pinprick, warps time until every second feels like drowning. But the footprints couldn't be explained away. Mara didn't notice anything wrong. She moved through the house like a ghost. But when she was with the doll, him, she corrected me sharply. She was alive again. She dressed it in tiny onesies, changed its diaper, even propped it in a bouncer while she made breakfast. The doll's glass eyes stared at nothing, but sometimes when Mara turned her back, I swore its gaze slid toward me, tracking, waiting. "He likes watching me cook," she said one morning, smiling as she stirred oatmeal on the stove. I stared at the doll. Its glassy eyes reflected the overhead light in two flat black dots. Unblinking. "Mara," I said carefully, "it's not real." The spoon clattered against the pot. She didn't turn around. "Don't. I'm just worried about you." "No, you're not." Her voice was eerily calm. "You're scared. Because you know." A chill prickled my neck. "Know what?" She finally looked at me, and the smile she gave was the kind you give a child who's just asked something naive. "That he's coming back." The crying started at 3:07 a.m. A sharp, hiccuping wail ripped through the baby monitor, so loud it sounded like it was in the room with us. Mara shot up instantly, already swinging her legs out of bed. "He's hungry," she murmured, shuffling toward the nursery. I sat frozen, my fingers digging into the mattress. "It's a doll. It's just a doll." But the cries didn't stop. They grew louder, more frantic, the sound curdling into something that didn't quite sound human. A wet, choking rasp, like a throat clogged with dirt. I forced myself to follow. The nursery door was open. Mara stood over the crib, her back to me, the doll cradled in her arms. Its face was pressed against her shoulder, tiny fists curled. The crying had stopped the second she picked it up. "See?" she whispered. "Just needed his mama." I stepped closer. The room smelled thicker now, sweet decay like fruit left too long in the sun, and beneath that something earthier, fresh soil. And then I saw it, on the floor just beneath the crib, at first just one. A single muddy footprint, small and bare, the size of an infant's. Then another, and another, materializing as I watched, the dampness seeping into the wood grain like something had just stepped there. They led from the corner of the room where the shadows didn't shift with the moonlight, straight to where Mara stood. My mouth went dry. "Mara." She didn't turn. "There's dirt on the floor." A beat of silence. Then she laughed, soft and airy. "Oh, that. I took him outside earlier. He likes the fresh air." I grabbed her arm, spinning her toward me. Her skin was icy. "Stop this. You didn't take it outside. It's been in this room all night." She stiffened. "Him." The doll's head lolled against her shoulder, its plastic cheek squishing against her skin, and then a sound, a click, like a jaw unhinging. Its eyelids twitched, not the glass ones, the other ones, thin, milky lids I hadn't noticed before, sliding up to reveal two black pits beneath. Pupils dilated, wet, too alive. I stumbled back. Mara just adjusted her grip, humming. "Shh, my love, go back to sleep." The eyes closed, but the footprints remained. Started watching Mara more closely after that night. She didn't sleep anymore, at least not when I was awake to see it. Every time I stirred in bed, her side was cold, the sheets smooth, as if she'd been gone for hours. Sometimes I'd wake to the sound of muffled chanting from the nursery. Words that slithered through the walls like something digging under skin. I'd find her in the nursery at odd hours, sometimes just standing over the crib in the dark, her hands resting on the edge like she was afraid to let go. Other times she'd be hunched over a book I didn't recognize, something old, its pages brittle, filled with symbols that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. And then, 3 nights ago, I followed her outside. It was 2 a.m. when I heard the back door creak open. I'd been pretending to sleep for hours, waiting. I listened until her footsteps faded before slipping out after her, the cold air biting through my shirt. The moon was full, casting long, skeletal shadows across the yard. She was kneeling by the rose bushes at the far edge of the garden, the same spot where we'd buried our son's ashes. Except the earth there was freshly disturbed. My stomach lurched. She was digging. Her fingers clawed at the dirt, her nightgown streaked with soil. She wasn't using a shovel, just her hands moving with a frantic, almost hungry urgency. Her nails were split and bleeding, but she didn't seem to notice. Around her, the ground was littered with small white objects, bones. Bird bones, I told myself, they had to be. I should have stopped her, but I couldn't move. Then, she went still. Her shoulders hunched forward, her entire body trembling as she lifted something from the ground. A bundle, small, wrapped in what looked like a stained receiving blanket, the same one he'd been swaddled in at the hospital. She cradled it to her chest, rocking slightly, her lips moving in a whisper I couldn't hear. No, not a whisper, a chant. The same jagged syllables I'd heard through the nursery walls, and then she peeled back the fabric. Even from where I stood, I saw the glistening, pink, raw, flesh, not decayed, not skeletal, fresh, like it had never been burned at all. A strangled noise escaped my throat. Mara's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then her face split into a smile, wide, unhinged. "Ethan," she breathed. "You're just in time." She stood, clutching the bundle to her chest, and started toward me. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom for hours, my mind racing. Had I really seen what I thought I had? Had she? No. It wasn't possible. We'd cremated him, hadn't we? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to remember. The funeral home, the small wooden box, the way the heat had shimmered above the crematorium chimney. But there were gaps. Hours, maybe days, lost in the haze of grief and the pills the doctor had given us. I'd never seen the ashes. Mara had handled everything. A knock at the door made me jump. "Ethan?" Mara's voice was light, almost sing-song. "Can you help me?" I didn't answer. "He's dirty," she said, laughing softly. "I need to clean him." The sink turned on downstairs. The water ran for a long time, too long, and beneath the rush of the faucet, something else. A wet, choking gurgle, like water struggling to drain through a clogged pipe or a throat. When it finally stopped, I crept out, my legs shaking. The nursery door was closed. I pressed my ear to the wood. Squelching, wet, rhythmic, like someone wringing out a sponge or peeling skin from muscle. Then Mara's voice, hushed and tender. "There, all better." Something gurgled in response. Not a doll, not anymore. I didn't sleep that night. The house wouldn't let me. The walls pulsed like a throat swallowing. The floorboards wept condensation that smelled like breast milk gone sour. I sat at the kitchen table, gripping a glass of whiskey that never touched my lips, listening to the symphony of horrors from the nursery above, squelching, humming, the wet, clicking percussion of something being rearranged, and beneath it all, that new sound, a slow, rhythmic thumping, not just in the walls now, in my teeth, in the marrow of my wrists. When dawn finally crept through the windows, the house fell silent, except for the scratching, not just scratching. A sound like wet clay being sculpted by invisible hands. I waited another hour, an hour of the ceiling creaking under unseen weight, before forcing myself upstairs. The nursery door stood slightly ajar. A warm, meat-scented breeze drifted through the gap. I pushed it open. Mara was asleep in the rocking chair. Her head lolled to one side, arms cradled empty against her chest. Her hands were raw, fingertips crusted with dirt, and that same black fluid that had been seeping from the corners of her eyes for days. The doll, that word was a joke now, lay in the crib. It had grown overnight. No longer smooth vinyl, but glistening meat wrapped in tissue-thin skin, mottled pink and gray like a half-healed burn. Its chest rose and fell in shuddering breaths. The fingers, now 14, the new ones budding from wrists and elbows like malignant fruit, twitched with purpose, nails blackened and curling backward to reveal raw nail beds underneath. And the smell. Like a womb turned inside out, I gagged, stumbling back, and stepped on something, the remains of last night's bundle. The blanket had fused with the flesh inside, becoming one putrid mass. Amid the rot, a glistening fragment, his tooth. that odd little pearl he'd been born with. The walls sighed. A warm, fetid breath washed over me. Number no, no, no. The crib creaked, not from movement, from strain. The wood was swelling, the screws weeping rust like old blood. I looked up. The thing's eyes were open, eyes it shouldn't have had. Eyes that matched mine exactly, wet, bloodshot, swimming in sockets too big for its swelling face. It stared at me. Its lips, now lined with tiny needle-like teeth, parted. Dada. Mara's eyes snapped open. She lunged for the crib, her face alight with something beyond joy, triumph. He said it. His first... I didn't let her finish. The fireplace poker was cold in my hand. Cold, but the tip glistened. Had it always been wet? The first blow caved the thing's skull like rotten fruit. It laughed. A wet, bubbling sound. Mara was on me before I could swing again, her nails, blackened at the tips now, too, raking furrows down my cheeks. "Don't touch him!" she screamed, her breath reeking of grave soil and copper. "He'll always find you now." The poker connected with her temple. She dropped, but her lips kept moving, shaping words that made my eardrums throb. The thing in the crib was reforming, the dent in its skull rising like bread dough. I brought the poker down again, and again, and they say grief makes people do strange things. They don't say what grief makes houses do. The police found me in the nursery, cradling a ruin of porcelain and meat. My face wounds itched strangely. When I scratched them, black crumbs came away under my nails. "It wasn't him," I kept saying. "It wasn't him." They didn't understand. The cell smells like antiseptic in the inside of a wet vacuum seal. But at night it smells like her. Like roses and turned earth. And the walls. Oh God, the walls. Last night I heard it. Not just gurgling now. Words. "Dada, come home." My wounds weep constantly. The doctor says it's infection. But I know what's growing in them. But you do, don't you? Because you hear it too. Right now. That sound like 1,000 maggots squirming in paste. The sound of something taking root, waiting for its Dada to come home. They found him in the nursery holding what was left. The police called it madness. The doctors called it grief. But you and I, we know the truth. Some doors shouldn't be opened. Some prayers shouldn't be answered. And some cribs should stay empty. But tonight I have to ask you, what would you have done? Would you have burned the house down? Buried the doll deep enough that even the earth couldn't spit it back out? Or would you have held it close and let it call you Dada?